And we are on. So, welcome to day 3 of the Lacrosse Summit. We've got a pretty damn good lineup again today. We kind of been priding ourselves on putting together a wide variety of topics, discussion, women's game, men's game, box, field. We're going to try and touch on the World Lacrosse discipline, 66. It's going to be introduced for the Olympics. We're just trying to gather some more information about it. We've got actually 2 today. We've got a women's box presentation, which is pretty unique to our Canadian game. But we also wanted to touch on leagues outside of the NCAA and different options for players to pursue. So I'm pretty proud to present Adam Bokmeyer, who's the head coach at my alma mater, which is St. Andrews University in North Carolina. Adam, welcome aboard, but I gotta welcome some sponsors first. So if you bear with me, please.
Go ahead.
We got to thank the Franklin Parr team out of Nashville, Tennessee, the real estate agency there. Sticks and Picks podcast, Apex Lacrosse Events, Major Series Lacrosse, Manitoba Lacrosse, Uncommon Fit, and I think one of the up-and-coming Midwest companies for lacrosse events is going to be he's going to be making his mark in field lacrosse relatively soon. There's pretty cool stuff going on, which is Bear Pop Events. If you get a chance to get on Kenny's website, there's a really unique tournament that's happening, or that potentially is happening. I don't know about the situation yet, but it's in Tennessee, and the backdrop for this thing is absolutely stunning. So, I can't speak enough about him, and he came on board. You know what? I just see him. He's in here tonight. Kenny, welcome aboard, man. I'm really glad you're here. Adam, we're going to hand this off to you.
Cool.
And you know what? You take it away, my friend. I can't wait for this.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thank you all for showing up today for this talk. Like Brad said, we're just going to talk about, options outside of the NCAA and a little bit of the player development involved with, how we're able to do things in both the MCLA and the NAIA, as opposed to the NCAA programs that most of us know. My experience comes from being recruited at Army, so Division I, and then I've coached Division II and a couple stints at the MCLA, and now, like Brad said, I'm in the NAIA at St. Andrews. And for me, taking this job, I think I had to educate myself on what you guys are here to listen to today. So should be pretty beneficial for those of you who don't have a ton of experience with it. Like Brad said, feel free to ask questions. I think this is going to be a question-heavy presentation here, so feel free to ask if there's clarification on anything throughout this talk. We will share our screen here and get going with the PowerPoint. Hey, Brad, can you give me, there we go. Can you give me some approval here to share my screen? Brad's holding out here. Well, we're gonna just start rolling through until we're able to share screen.
Sorry, Adam, is it popping up? Like I'm not showing that I'm.
Yeah, it says disabled here, so kind of stuck. Brad's holding out on all of you here today, guys.
Try now.
I got it. Appreciate it. All right. Options outside the NCAA. We're going to move through. All right, so the NAIA first. The NAIA was founded in 1940. There's over 250 universities that are involved with the NAIA that are member schools. There's 31 sports across the NAIA, and all of these are school funded, a lot like the NCAA. There are athletic scholarships, and these are equivalencies like the NCAA does. for our sport in lacrosse. So we have 12 available as a maximum of scholarships in the NAIA. They didn't start sponsoring lacrosse until 2012. So I think this is part of the reason that we don't really have this huge understanding of why this isn't publicized and people don't have all the information in it. You look at the sports that are traditionally big sports: football, basketball, baseball. You've got, everyone who's been watching The Last Dance. Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman played in the NAIA. You've got Walter Payton and John Kitna and Ben Zobrist in baseball, who was 2006 World Series MVP. So you've got a ton of people over a long, long period of time in the traditional sports who have had incredible careers in their respective sports in the NAIA. And, as the NAIA builds, we're looking forward to doing that as well. But again, this being a newer sport for the NAIA, I think the information just needs to keep flowing as much as possible. We currently have 32 programs in the NAIA, so it's small and we're still building. So definitely looking forward to more schools adding in the upcoming future. Next, we'll move on to the MCLA. So everyone has probably some good knowledge about the MCLA and club lacrosse. So the MCLA is huge comparatively to the NAIA, with 163 universities participating in lacrosse in the MCLA. There's 3 divisions. There's Division 1, 2, and 3, and 3 was just added last year. As opposed to the NCAA and the NAIA, the funding for MCLA programs comes from fundraising, and it's player organized, right? So we'll cover that in a bit, but there aren't any athletic scholarships. So here's your big difference. It's like Division 3 in this sense. Most recreational sports programs at each school cover these MCLA programs. So they're a subset of that program. So I think the overall idea of club lacrosse is that everyone pays thousands and thousands of dollars for dues. And that's really not the case. It comes from a multitude of sources. You've got your rec sports that at some schools kicks in $20,000, $30,000. You've got fundraising, and we're gonna say player dues are a subset of that fundraising. Most of these programs have incredible alumni associations. Player dues just can't cover it all. So there's a whole myriad of ways that these programs are funded, and it comes from a bunch of different areas. The University of Texas, for instance, where I coached previous to St. Andrews, the budget is right around $300,000, which that operating budget is bigger than most NCAA programs, save Division I, and it may be some of those. So funding a program like that is a phenomenal effort by so many people. So it's really important, again, to note that it varies across the different divisions and different schools in the MCLA, but it's not just the player dues. In my time coaching in the MCLA, I have never seen anyone turn away for financial reasons. So when everyone's always super worried about the cost of club, it's really not that big of a deal when it comes down to it for each program. There's so many phenomenal schools and academic programs involved in the MCLA that are so different than an experience you get in other divisions. So that's important to know. I'm going to move on here to league comparison. So as we look across here, you'll see the just comparison of size for the 3 divisions in the NCAA and the NAIA and MCLA. Like I said, the MCLA is incredibly large and kind of functions at the same size rate of Division I, Division II. Division III is really large, and I think we all understand that comes from a lack of eligibility enforcement and certain things you need from compliance, and not having to have a big of a staff and no athletic scholarships. So it's really cost effective to add at the Division III level, which is why you see that big of a number. And then we go down to scholarships, which again is really important to note. So Division I has 12.6, Division II has 10.4, and the NAI has 12. And that varies per school, right? There are Division I NCAA programs that aren't fully funded. They don't get the full 12.6. Same with Division II and same in the NAI. So, finding that school that has the fully funded scholarships is important if the financial aspect is the biggest that we're looking for as recruits coming out of high school. The funding source, again, going down is something we'll cover. You've got some NCAA programs, Division II, the Division II school I coached at had player uniform dues of $600 per student. So, when we add all of these up, it looks a lot like those club player dues at the MCLA. Some of these NCAA programs, again, outside of Division I, are paying for spring break trips and travel and fundraising for that. So I think there's a lot more similarities than we think on the outside looking in. And initial eligibility rules. So these are really important. We'll start with the MCLA and Division III because they're the easiest here. There's no eligibility center for either of them. Division III, it's per the school's academic standards. So if you come in out of high school and you're not going to end up on academic probation, suspension, you're not in any special programs to get you caught up, you're probably going to be eligible. And again, that depends per school, and same in the MCLA. So, the continuing guys can't be on academic probation, suspension, but you're not sending transcripts in, you're not certifying eligibility like you are in Division I, II, or the NAI. So Division I and II have sliding scales. I put the minimum here on the PowerPoint, and as that core GPA goes up, the required SAT or ACT will decrease, and those are listed on their sites if you want more specific info on that. For the NAI, our incoming kids have to meet 2 of 3 standards here. So either a 2.0 core, you see that ACT or SAT scores, or top 50% of class rank. So they've only got to meet 2 of those, and if they meet those 2, they're initially eligible. And again, this isn't continuing eligibility. Continuing eligibility looks a lot the same in Division II, I, II, and the NAI. So NAI scholarships. This is probably the most confusing part of this whole thing with the comparison between the divisions. So in the NCAA, you've got scholarships that stack on top of each other. A student can get $10,000 scholarship, and the academic portion, whatever they get from the school, doesn't count towards their equivalencies. And that's the difference here, the big difference financially in the NAI, is that both of those, all of that institutional aid that's not federal funding counts against our scholarship equivalencies. So here at St. Andrews, we don't even offer our lacrosse recruits any academic money. $10,000 academic, $10,000 athletic is the same for us as $20,000 athletic scholarships. So when you're talking to NAIA programs and discussing that, know that that's the case. And I think that's really confusing for some people, because that's unlike the traditional mold for collegiate scholarships. There are a couple exemptions that are huge, that we take advantage of here in the NAIA. And, we really try and get after the guys who are academically qualified. Because of this, we can stretch these scholarships with these exemptions. So if you see here, the half exemption for GPA and test scores or class rank, it's just one of the three. Their scholarship is only going to count for half. And that's huge for us, and especially the fulls. If we bring in a guy who's got a 3.9 unweighted high school GPA, his scholarship will not count against our equivalencies for that year. And I think it's a wild juggling effort for us as NAIA coaches, because if we're pretty close to our 12 max, and we've got a couple guys that are full exemptions, but then they have really poor semesters at school, and then those scholarships kick in, it's a little bit higher for continuing students to get those exemptions. So we place a lot of emphasis on the academic side, and I think that that's a huge benefit of the NAIA, is that we all understand that we do have these exemptions, and it has the ability to really set our programs apart. So that emphasis on the academic side really helps us on the field. It gets more guys on the field and more talent. So that's huge for us. Player development. So, now that we have discussed, I guess, the major comparisons between all of it, we're going to take a look at the player development side and the limitations on the season. So as we go through this, again, I'm going to hammer down the fact that outside of Division I, every school varies within this, where we're discussing the max allowable, and it really does change per school or per conference in the Division III world. Some schools have fall seasons, and because of their conference, they have really short fall seasons, and some don't have any at all, and they're not able to get going till basically the middle of January. So there's a lot of emphasis on bringing in guys who are game ready, who can be leaders and run things outside of it. But in the MCLA, you get a more traditional fall, because there really aren't any restrictions for practices. So you're working around class schedules and fraternity events for some programs, and really trying to have a better balance of personal life with the lacrosse side of things. And again, schools vary. You've got some schools who take this incredibly serious. You've got the University of Texas, again, I'll bring up because of experience. You've got your own multi-million-dollar facility. You've got your own weight room at the University of Texas. And that's treated a lot more like a Division I program than some of the Division II, Division IIIs in the MCLA, who just show up and play as a bunch of friends. And the NAIA specifically, we're allowed 24 weeks of contact with our guys for the entire school year. So whether that's us being at a lift, being at film, practice, that's all we're allowed for the entirety of the school year. But what that gives us, as opposed to like Division II, who has 45 consecutive days, is most of the time our springs last 15, 16 weeks, depending on when conference tournament is. So we're really allowed 8 to 9 weeks And there can be up to 3 breaks in those weeks. So we can stretch out a significant majority of the fall with training with our guys. And that's got an incredible impact on player development. So, I think we're more able to take in guys who are a little bit more raw because we get some extra time with them. And we can take that chance and develop those guys. As we have, 3 scrimmage dates in the fall, and we have 20 hours a week that we can be with these guys. And when we go into, again, the fall and implementation, this player development talk isn't about, stick work drills. This is more the overview of what we try and do as a program, with the time that we're allowed and giving that option, that's outside the MCLA or out of the NCAA. So this is what we put in the fall. Before guys show up, the coaching staff sits down and we discuss player development. We say, where do we need our guys to be, both as individual players and as a team from a team concept side. So this is just a screenshot of what we try and do every week. And this really builds your practice plan out for you. And when we're talking about player development, at least on our end, I think the structure and the discipline is super necessary given my background. It makes sense, but not kids can sniff out when you show up to practice and then you write out a practice plan there. And this is what we avoid doing by putting together this implementation plan. So we really put down everything we need to get done, all the way to individual focus and whatever we're working on as a defense that day is what we're going to do in individuals, and this will build it for us. But from a development perspective, this ensures that we don't miss anything. It's really important for us to develop the guys and get them ready in the system. That way, when we do get into spring, since lacrosse has started earlier and earlier, we play in January now, we really don't have much time in the spring. So this implementation, we ensure that we don't miss a single beat here. And I'd be more than happy to shoot this over to you guys via Excel after, if you're interested in taking a look at the whole thing, and utilizing this for your programs as well. I think it's, again, the basis of what we do from a player development on the field perspective. Next, we're going to go through a weekly plan, and again, going into the minutia of player development. Here's what we're looking at. So we've got strength and conditioning in the morning. We have 20 hours a week, like I said before, in the NAI. So we have basically 4 hours a day if we want to do it this way, and we can move our weeks around to do a little bit more per day, and cut a day off the week. So we've got some leeway into figuring that out as best as we need from that implementation plan. We go through, we get half an hour individuals and we schedule those around classes. We've got our film leading into practice, nice and quick, and get them out to practice. And, again, we've got 8 to 9 weeks of doing this. So it's a really, really good option for development where, like I said, in Division III, some of those programs don't have a fall, and it's really hard for guys who don't have that discipline and who aren't ready to step on the field and contribute right away. So we're very fortunate to have this kind of setup, and this is one of the things I love about the NAI. As we look here too, study hall. So we have 6 hours a week. And when we discuss player development, there's no point in us developing players that can't be on the field due to academic issues. So we put a huge emphasis, again, from an exemption standpoint, on the academics. But not only that is when we're recruiting these guys, when they commit, you know, we really make a promise to those kids and their families that we're going to help them be successful. We're going to do everything in our power to make these guys successful over their time here at St. Andrews. And our end goal is to produce success for these guys in gainful employment following and hopefully before they graduate college. You know, we're not Nick Saban or Dabo. We're not judged off of our draft picks here. What we're judged on is our ability to produce good character men that are able to be successful in the working world and use the collegiate experience as, you know, as stepping stone, as sort of an internship to be successful. And I think it's really important to discuss all of that when we talk about player development, because it's not just that. Every decision we make is geared towards their eventual success, whether that's on the field and pushing them to a point that they need to work past, because that resiliency, you know, will help them later in life. All of that is you know, considered in everything we do. And then personal development, and, you know, I'll throw this. It's awesome that he was added last minute to the speaker list at 2:00, but we've been utilizing John O'Grady, who will be speaking next, for our team's personal development. So right now he's over Zoom talking to our guys regarding leadership, regarding personal responsibility, and really kind of taking that off our plate. Unlike Division I, everyone else has to deal with our own nutrition mostly. Some of us don't have strength coaches. We don't have speed coaches. To worry about player development, we have to take care of all this back end stuff, and as much as we can outsource is really important. And the leadership aspect, again, John will discuss, but, you know, I think we're all coaches, and we all know that we can lead. This is what we do. This is what our job is. But, you know, giving up that responsibility, I don't think most of us want to because of pride, and we're all very good at that, and that's not what this is. It's for us to actually develop our players in the way that we want to on the field. We have to have the time and the focus for that. So what we do is we give that up to John to take over for us. And we give up our lists so someone else can take over this. We give up our study hall so someone can focus on the academics. That way we can really focus on this player development. And, you know, the discussion, again, of player development could go on for a long time, getting into the details of it. But this is basically just an overview of what we try and do and what we think about going into player development and how we execute the minutiae and those details. So just concluding here, as we went through that, I know we kind of hammered through that pretty quickly here. There are so many differences to different schools and different conferences, and when we're discussing outside of Division I. And I think it's so important, you hear it all the time, finding the right school, finding the right program, you know, what you're looking for academically. If it's financial help, guess what? NAI is probably going to give you more. The roster sizes are smaller, and they've got the ability to give you a little bit more. So, you know, that knowledge of all of that is really important when we do explore all of these options. You know, most of your big football schools in the world are in the MCLA. So that big school experience, you've got the small school, private school mostly, and the NAI experience. And just phenomenal options. You know, there's phenomenal coaches all over. Some of the best coaches I know in the world are in the MCLA. Guys who were ex-Division I coaches, and you know, their leadership is just as good, if not better, than a lot of the other coaches. And I think that's really important to note is that you can find whatever experience you want outside of the NCAA, and just doing the research is great, and I'd love to help with any of that. If you guys have questions, not just specifically St. Andrews, if I can help on again, that overview of player development and your research into programs or for your kids and where their options are, I'd love to help. But Brad, if you want to pop open the Q&A, I'd love to take questions. I'm sure there's a million since this is new for more people. So.
Well, we've got a couple thank yous in there right now. One from John O'Grady, who's actually on the call right now.
Hey, welcome, John.
But yeah, Q&As are open. Feel free to fire away at Adam here, and I'll relay and filter some of these questions through to him. Adam, another thank you. So for the NAIA, what's the landscape look like for, a future expansion for programs? I mean, we kind of got devastating news with Furman, ending theirs, but what's the chances, well, I use Coker College as an example, right? Like they dismissed theirs in 2011?
Yeah.
Is there any programs like that play in the NAIA while the rest of their programs might be NCAA?
No, because it's really a parent school thing. If the whole school's in it, there's a compliance issue there when you talk NAIA versus NCAA. So I think we're a lot like Division I. There's a ton of money spent on, and I think we generate a lot of income, and I think that's a whole conversation with the Furman issue, right? Is what they were generating for the school is probably a lot more than they were taking, and subtracting from the school. So I think that's a school decision, but most of us have enough kids where we're generating, the tuition funding for the school that's beneficial for us to be there. And specifically at St. Andrews, our enrollment's up for next year, and we're really excited about that. So, I see some questions here. So, Tom asked, how are you doing recruiting from the Northeast? We've done really well in Section 5 for this class. We've got Aquinas and Rhonda Coit coming in, and that Western New York is a lot like Laurinburg, so I think those guys feel at home here. We're a little bit more rural, so we've done well there, and we'll continue to work on there. Multi-sport athletes, it's super beneficial. We've got 6-7 guys who are dual sport guys. We've got most of them in football and one in wrestling, and wrestling is a little weird because that runs into 2 seasons, but the football guys, our football staff is amazing. They take care of those guys. They make sure they're ready physically, and those are guys that we expect to be a lot like the D3 that we discussed, that have to be a little bit more ready because we don't get fall. Again, a lot like Division III. So, 50% of that scholarship counting is really big for us. And again, school dependent. I've been at schools where it's not a great relationship with the football staff, and here we're fortunate to, have a really good relationship. So it's very beneficial for us. John, what do we got? Coach, why do you feel some coaches reluctant? Again, I think it's what we discussed earlier. I think it's a pride thing. We're all very prideful people. We're all very passionate people as coaches. We're incredibly competitive, and we don't want to give up that leadership aspect. I don't think we want to say, well, this looks like I'm not good at it, so I'm giving it up, and that's not it. I think it's a time management thing, but I think it's a pride thing, and it's a very real conversation, that we don't want to give that up because we are good leaders, and I think it's important to note that it's not saying that we're bad leaders or we're unable to handle this. I think just having someone taking care of that is really important.
So yeah, I'll jump in real quick. So I
Yeah.
mean, part of the question was, why are coaches reluctant to outsource portions of their program similar to the leadership that John O'Grady's providing?
Right.
And I agree with Adam. Like, I'll go back to like my first junior program in Canada in 2001, and I said this to a friend yesterday. Is I probably went in there and thought that I knew everything there was because I played for some great coaches and had some winning records prior to that. And I probably wouldn't have given up any sort of control, any sort of momentum to anybody else.
Right.
Whereas now, and not that it's recent for me, but it transformed because I reach out to everyone and anyone I can. And if I can track down their phone number through someone else, I will. I mean, John O'Grady, we met 3 days ago and had a great conversation. And, I'm not afraid to put him in at 2:00 because I know the people that referred him and I know what those people are like. And I think those relationships start, but coaches also aren't educated in this in lacrosse.
Yeah.
We're kind of closed-minded, and we almost have to see it to believe it. So once you start telling people about your experience with John and I start telling my experience, all of a sudden other coaches are going to jump on the train because that's the way lacrosse works.
Yeah. And it's funny to note because, we're only allowed 3 coaches. Well, NCAA and whatnot, and you've got volunteers and director of ops, but you've got so many more coaches on a football staff, and so much more from a support staff, but these are the guys who are utilizing this more. So I think we do need to make that switch, but it's all what we can handle personally. But all right, what do we got next here? Tucker lost a lot of respect, thought the NAIA was a joke. So again, when I interviewed for this job, I had to do my own research 2 years ago in the NAIA. I had obviously been in other divisions and didn't know much. I think it's more of a lack of understanding because once people realize that there's real athletic money on the table, the conversation changes, right? When we realize that a chunk of our academic, experience for 4 years can get paid for, it's a really big deal. I think the biggest thing we combat is the size of the league, but it's only a little bit smaller than Division II was when I was coaching there. So, I think it's just really important for people, again, like Brad said, to make relationships and, as much as good coaches join the NAIA and have those prior relationships, I think it provides a lot of ability for people to understand that it's a legitimate league. You have Chris Burdick, who just took Weber, who was a Providence head coach for a decade, and at Tampa. There's phenomenal coaches in the NAIA, and the value of the NAIA, I think, is starting to grow. So I think it's just a time thing. Best way to be recruited. Right now, it's definitely not playing in tournaments that aren't happening, but, get good film put together. And Brad and I discussed highlights on a Zoom a couple weeks ago, but, really important to reach out to coaches. Find schools that you like and reach out. There's so many online aspects that we were in the past, but consistently right now to find kids, since we can't be out and about. So, if there's the inability for coaches to see you at tournaments, you've got to be a little bit more up front in this process and go find them yourself and go and make that. How do we find our prospects if they're interested in the school, not in the region? We travel a ton when we're able to. Our recruiting budget is pretty hefty, actually, because we get out of our area a lot. I work with Team 91 Carolina down here, so we get to see a bunch of those guys. So when we get on the road, we go out and see them. But again, I think these online aspects are super important. And updating your profile and getting transcripts on there and making sure that we can see all that, especially at this point in the COVID world, the new world we live in. The online aspect is vital. Seeing the quality play at D1, MCLA, NAIA. Division One is its own animal. In the MCLA, like just for instance, at Texas, we had guy Cooper Glass transfer in. He's from Colorado. He was an all-MAC defenseman at Monmouth, and he transferred into Texas because he wanted a little different experience out of school. And was a phenomenal defenseman for us for 2 years. He was voted all MAC while he was at Texas because no one knew he left. But I mean, and that doesn't just happen in Texas; that happens all over the board. But just phenomenal players show up. Those guys want a different avenue to be able to play super competitive lacrosse. And be able to have a little bit more of a life. And they get that in the MCLA, and they get top tier talent. And in the NAIA, it's starting to happen too. But again, that's school, that's recruiter, that's coach dependent. I think if you're not shooting for the stars and recruiting and going into battles with Division I programs for kids, then you're not reaching out enough. So we really go all over the board. I think there's phenomenal talent. Again, depending on schools, we got one of the better kids at Nassau Community College to come this past year, and he's a phenomenal player for us, and definitely could have played Division I. So I think there's talent everywhere, and again, the development and maximizing that talent is where we kick into next. So excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, there's great opportunities out there for student athletes. I remember having a discussion with Cam Holding, who was the head coach at Michigan State. He was playing for me in Ontario in the summertime, and we were talking about recruiting and different avenues, and we were talking about how he wanted to build Michigan State when he took it over. And we just talked about the different progressions and where he was going to go recruiting. I remember talking to him one night, and he was very excited because he landed one of the recruits that was on kind of his radar. Yeah. And, he said, I was going against some NCAA schools. I was going against some other MCLAs, and I got him. He's coming. And like I said, within 2 years, I think the kid was a rising junior, and they won the championship. Yeah. And this kid was a key part of it. So it was a pretty interesting process to see that, especially with someone like Cam, who I had known, and Michigan State program that he had to rebuild.
Right, for sure. And I mean, he played Division II NCAA, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, there's guys all over. And again, I think it's so important to just do research on every division. It's not, that there's so many different types of schools and programs and academic programs and benefits to everywhere that, being open to that is going to provide a really good experience for guys. So.
Yeah, well, without a doubt. we've still got a few more minutes here with Adam. So if you've got any questions, again, fire them in the Q&A box, and let's keep these getting answered. Adam had some charts and spreadsheets. His email is on the screen right now. If you're interested, I'm sure you can tweet at him, email him,
text me, call me. That's my personal cell. Whatever I can do to help.
Yeah, get some information, share that. Adam, thanks for coming on today.
I appreciate you having
questions come in or anything like that. I just wanted to thank you for taking your time and sharing that process and understanding a little bit more between the MCLA, the NAIA, the D3, 2, 1. I mean, there's just like anything else in life, there's a ton of options out there.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, optics and kind of lack of presence sometimes, coaches don't share what they don't know.
Right. Exactly.
So, and my knowledge of the NAIA before St. Andrews became an NAIA school was slim and none. I really didn't know much about it. Didn't even know there was lacrosse offered as a sport in there. So to me, it's huge because my school is able to come back and offer a program and have the resources to be stable once again.
Definitely. And Tucker asks again, how long till an NAI player join the pro ranks?
Which pro league?
Right. Right. I think, you've got so many, NLL or MLL. And there's so many outside of the NLL too, if you want to play indoor, right? And I think Brad coaches 400 teams at this point. So, you've got the option to do that. I know I will have a discussion with Brad about Aldridge, the NASA transfer we got. I know his goal is to play professional indoor, and that's a discussion that we'll utilize, Brad to see where he's at and what he thinks. And the D3 guys in the MLL, I think the emergence of the PLL and roster spots being open in the MLL for guys who aren't just Division I ball players is awesome. But again, that's the work you put in, right? I don't think it really matters where you play. If you can play and a coach can win a professional championship, you're going to make that squad, I don't think it's, you didn't go to Levittown High School, you're not going to be able to play for us. That's not how this goes. And I think just continually showing up to tryouts, but putting in the work necessary to play at that level is more important than anything. Yeah,
from the NLL side, those coaches could care less where you went to school.
Right.
Well, I don't want to class all of them, but I know many of them, they wouldn't know the distinction between NAIA or anything else if you the school that you went to. It wouldn't matter to them. And the NLL is a little bit of a different beast when it comes to graduates. But I can tell you right now, we've had tons and tons of D1, 2, 3. Cam Holding was an MCLA guy. Was he MCLA? Yes, he was.
It was Division II MCLA. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and he's won a world championship with Team Canada. He's he's played in the National Lacrosse League for several years. Davenport just recently. Like the guys that went to Davenport. There's tons of those guys too. Yeah. So there's all sorts of examples, and the sky's the limit. But playing in the NLL or MLL, I mean, it kind of comes down to, do you want it? I mean, it's not necessarily where you went to school and what level you played at. It's how bad you're going to work at it.
Well, and like in your case, right? We've got St. Andrews, who was a very good Division II program back in the day. You guys have some beautiful trophies in my office, which is awesome. But so I appreciate the hardware. But Brad came for those of you who don't know, Brad came out of St. Andrews and the 5th pick in the NLL.
Yeah.
So even back then we had a small Division II school in the middle of nowhere in North Carolina who produced a number 5 pick in the NLL. So Again, like Brad said, especially in the NLL, it doesn't matter if you can play, you can play. So.
No problem, Tucker. No problem. Thanks. It's a good question, and long overdue. It's nice to see players giving it an honest shot to become.
Yeah, for sure.
I have guys, Team Israel, they've come out of Grand Canyon Valley. I don't know what it was, but the kid got an NLL shot this year after producing in the World Championships in Langley for me. So you're always going to get shots. Coaches are going to look at you in a game situation and they're going to say, you know what, come to camp, bust your ass and see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's also position flex, right? And the ability to play lacrosse, not just, one specific position, which I think is important. I think you've mentioned in the past that you played every position at St. Andrews. So
that was not by choice. But yeah, it does happen and offers some flexibility. So you know what, like, bottom line is there's great opportunities out there. My decision to attend St. Andrews was specifically that. I knew I wanted to play pro and I wanted to play a lot. So I went to a school that I had some leadership opportunities presented, some playing time opportunities presented, and I made the best of it.
Definitely.
And I know a ton of guys that are like that, and they chose different schools as well. So it comes down to custom fit. It comes down to, as I said to the St. Andrews guys a week ago, like, you're in charge of this process. Your families are in charge. Sit down, talk about it, but take charge and identify a direction. And once you do that, things in schools start weeding themselves out real quick.
Right.
Okay. Well, you know what? I don't see any Q&A coming back in. I think we can wrap this up just as soon as I say that.
There we go. Keep them coming.
Oh, thanks, Tucker.
Thanks, Tucker. Really appreciate you hopping on, man.
Yeah. So you know what, Adam? I actually got to take control back here.
Do it.
Reclaim host. There we go. Thanks everybody for joining. I would tell you, join us again at 2:00. John O'Grady is going to be coming on. Promises to be a pretty interactive and great session, developing leadership and empowering those in your organization. So come back in an hour and let's do it again.
Definitely. Thanks again, Brad. Appreciate everyone showing up.
Talk soon.
All right.